Welcome to Fun Facts Online. Today, we're heading to the rugged mountains of West Texas, where a story of resurrection is unfolding. Imagine an animal, a true icon of the American Southwest, completely vanishing from an entire state, gone, extirpated. Now imagine it coming back. This isn't science fiction. It's the real-life story of the desert bighorn sheep's dramatic return to Texas, a tale of de-extinction in action. For thousands of years, the desert bighorn sheep, Ovis canadensis nelsoni, were kings of the Trans-Pecos region. Ancient rock art shows our fascination with them. As late as the 1880s, up to 2,500 bighorns roamed across 15 different mountain ranges. But the arrival of settlers in the late 19th century brought disaster. Unregulated hunting was the first blow. Then came domestic sheep and goats, which competed for food and water, and more devastatingly brought diseases the bighorns had no immunity to. Net wire fences crisscrossed the landscape, cutting off their ancient migration routes. The decline was rapid. By 1905, only 500 remained. A hunting ban in 1903 was too little too late. By the 1940s, just 35 were left. The final documented sighting of a native Texas bighorn happened in October 1958. By the early 1960s, they were officially declared gone from Texas, a ghost in the mountains. But even as the last bighorn vanished, the dream of their return began. This wasn't a sudden effort, it was a multi-generational promise. The first formal step was a cooperative agreement back in 1954 between state and federal wildlife agencies and private conservation groups like the Boone and Crockett Club. The plan? Captive breeding. In 1959, the first facility was built at the Black Gap Wildlife Management Area, stocked with 16 desert bighorns brought in from Arizona. It was a slow, difficult process, plagued by disease, predators, and low birth rates, but it was the essential first step. This comeback story is powered by people. One of its most legendary figures was the late Dr. James Red Duke. You might know him as a famous trauma surgeon, but he was also a passionate conservationist. In 1981, he founded the Texas Bighorn Society, a group that tirelessly lobbied and raised funds to make the bighorn's reintroduction a reality. Today, that torch is carried by people like Froilan Hernandez, the Desert Bighorn Sheep Program leader for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Hess on the front lines, overseeing the modern restoration. And this success hinges on partnerships. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department works hand in hand with the Texas Bighorn Society, the Wild Sheep Foundation, and crucially, private landowners who have opened up vast areas of their ranches, providing the essential habitat for these animals to thrive. Now, let's talk about de-extinction. We often think of bringing back mammoths, but the Texas bighorn story is a practical example. The original native subspecies, Ovis canadensis texiana, was declared extinct. However, recent genetic studies on old museum specimens revealed that they were part of the same desert bighorn lineage as other populations in the Southwest. This was a game changer. It meant that bringing in desert bighorns from Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Mexico wasn't just introducing a replacement. It was restoring the same genetic stock. In fact, by mixing genes from these different source populations, conservationists have created a new Texas herd that is more genetically diverse and resilient than the original, better equipped to handle the challenges of today's environment. So how do you move a wild sheep from one mountain range to another? With a helicopter, a net gun, and a whole lot of grit. The modern restoration effort relies on translocation. The process is incredible. An expert pilot flies a helicopter low over the rugged terrain of a place like the Elephant Mountain Wildlife Management Area, which now serves as a source herd. A gunner leans out and fires a net over a running bighorn. Then, a mugger literally jumps from the hovering helicopter, blindfolds the sheep to calm it down, and secures its legs. The animal is then put in a special sling and airlifted to a staging area, It's like a MASH unit for sheep. A team of vets and biologists works lightning fast. They take blood and tissue samples, perform ultrasounds to check for pregnancies, and fit the animal with a GPS collar to track it after release. This data is priceless. Finally, the sheep are loaded into trailers and driven to their new home, where they are released back into their ancestral lands. But the story isn't all victories. The Bighorns face a formidable enemy, the Aoudad or Barbary sheep. Native to North Africa, Aoudad were introduced to Texas for hunting in the mid-20th century and have exploded in population. There are now at least 20,000 of them, vastly outnumbering the Bighorns. They compete directly for the same scarce food and water. But the biggest threat is disease. Aoudad carry a bacterium called Mycoplasma ovi-pneumoniae, or M. ovi. While Aoudad are largely unaffected, it causes a deadly pneumonia in bighorns, which have no immunity. Entire bighorn herds have been devastated by die-offs linked to this disease. Controlling the Aoudad population through methods like aerial gunning is a massive and controversial challenge, especially since Aoudad hunting is also a source of income for many landowners. It's a complex problem with no easy answers. Bringing back the bighorn isn't just about the sheep, it's about restoring their kingdom. This means active habitat management. One of the most critical innovations has been the construction of guzzlers. These are ingenious rainwater catchment systems that store water in tanks, providing a reliable source for wildlife in an arid land. Volunteers from the Texas Bighorn Society have spent countless hours building and maintaining these life-saving structures. And here's a paradox. Hunting is what pays for much of this conservation. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department issues a very small number of bighorn hunting permits each year. One or two of these are auctioned off to the highest bidder, sometimes fetching hundreds of thousands of dollars. That money goes directly back into the program, funding the research, the helicopter captures, and the habitat restoration. It's a powerful model where hunters are directly funding the survival of the species they revere. The restoration of the desert bighorn in Texas is a monumental achievement, but the journey is far from over. Disease, the Aoudad invasion, and a changing climate are persistent threats. Yet there is tremendous hope. The recent historic translocation of bighorns to the Franklin Mountains near El Paso is a bold move to establish a new, isolated, and disease-free source herd for the future. The ultimate vision is to see bighorn sheep secure and thriving in all their historical mountain ranges across West Texas. Their return is more than just a wildlife success story. It's a testament to long-term vision, powerful partnerships, and human dedication. As these majestic animals once again leap across the rocky cliffs of Texas, they are a living, breathing symbol of resilience and a powerful reminder that with enough commitment, we can begin to mend the wild places we've broken. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.